Hey guys, so welcome to my channel. I want to talk about the Amanda Seals, the Amanda Seals and Shannon Sharp interview because I've got so many thoughts. So I literally watched it a few days ago when it came out. I put a little clip on my shorts when one of the most kind of viral moments when they were talking about her experience with racism, and she felt like he was deflecting or trying to defend the teacher in that example, or the children that were saying racial slurs to her. And I want to talk about how like two things can be true at the same time, because I feel like people always want to say like, well, he's right or he's wrong, or she's right or he's wrong, but I feel like two things can be true at the same time. For example, I think Shannon Sharp came into the conversation with prejudgments. And you can see that when he's asking her questions, he asks what we call kind of leading questions. He will say things like, oh, let me guess, they brought you into the like parent teacher conference because you talk too much. You were talking too much as a child. And it's like, well, you're already kind of assigning something to her where you don't know her yet.
There were a lot of parent teacher conferences with you, huh?
Yes, but not for what do you think they were about? At one point, they had called parent conferences with the director.
What did you do?
Until I got kicked out that Emmys party.
What'd you do to get kicked out of the Emmys party? Damn, we can't take you nowhere.
When you're interviewing someone, you're supposed to be open and ask, why did they invite you to a parents-teacher conference? You know, in therapy, we talk about the idea of being curious, and that's a really, really important thing to be in general conversation. But especially if you're interviewing someone, be curious. Act like you don't know. Ask questions. Ask open questions. I feel like a lot of the things he was asking her, or a lot of the commentary he had, it's because he already had prejudgments on her, the kind of person she was, and it almost seems like he had already labelled her a bit of a troublemaker, or a bit of a loudmouth, or something like that. Because if you watch the interview, you can tell. I mean, he questioned her autism diagnosis.
So I recently was diagnosed as someone who has autism spectrum disorder, which is very difficult to.
Which she actually wasn't diagnosed. And I was like, oh, because at first when I was watching it, I was like, why would you even question whether she's got a diagnosis? And then it turns out she actually doesn't have a diagnosis. And I'm like, oh, Amanda, why? And I think she should have worded it like, I think I have autism because of A, B, C, D. But she said, I've got autism, as if it's, and he asked her like, oh, you've been like clicking it. She's like, yeah. She kind of dismissed it, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good, because it seems like you're lying. And I'm sorry, there is a difference between, oh, I think I've got bipolar, versus I have been diagnosed by a psychiatrist with bipolar. That's the two different things. You can think what you want. We can all go on Google and Google things, and we can talk to people, but it's not the same as having a diagnosis. And I really think that we can't dismiss that kind of clinical diagnosis and just self-diagnose. I don't really think that's correct. And then, so from his side, I do feel like he did come in with kind of prejudgments. But then from her side, I mean, she was quite intense. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it. She was intense. She didn't feel friendly at the beginning. It felt like they both came in. It was a bit of a tennis match. Like,
You see things one way, I might see it a different way. That doesn't mean I'm being combative.
I'm gonna get you.
I would say it's combative when there's a undermining of how someone sees something.
But why are you trying to undermine how I see it?
I'm gonna get you.
Because it's my experience.
Okay, well, I'm telling you, I
don't know my experience.
But I'm saying, see, you take it as, if I don't agree with you, I'm being combative.
I'm gonna get you.
No, I don't. I take it as, if I have an experience and you're telling me that my experience isn't what it is.
No,
I get you. And it was like, this is not a good conversation, because I feel like her approach to answering the questions was on defense mode. And I don't know what came first. Maybe she felt like he was judging her, so she was defensive. Maybe he saw her defensiveness, so he put up his defensiveness. We don't know what came first. But I think that's how I felt, especially in the first hour of the conversation. I mean, it was awkward.
Question to you is, why do you even feel compelled at this juncture in this interview? Why would you even feel compelled to try to?
because I'm not defending.
We had some awkward moments in interview when it was like, is everything okay? Like, is this your first time meeting each other? Do you know each other before? Like, is there beef? Because I've watched a few of his interviews. I watched the one with obviously Cat Williams, the famous interview, like nearly like crazy amount of views. And I've seen some of her interviews, like on The Breakfast Club, things like that. And I've never seen her be that direct. And I think she is a direct person. She is firm. She's very self-assured. And I was thinking about how maybe we're not used to seeing women be that kind of in your face, self-assured, because the way she would answer questions, I think she called herself a genius, because we can accept Kanye West, well, some of us can accept Kanye West calling himself a genius, but if she says it, people don't like it. And I think another thing as well, she was very honest. And I think she was honest in a way we're not used to seeing people be. She said like, oh yeah, I've got low self-esteem. And it's like, oh, okay. We're used to celebrities pretending a lot. We're used to people in general pretending a lot. And I think when she was just answering the questions very honest. And then even when she was talking about her exes, she was like, oh no, we were together in the past. He's now married. I'm not saying anything wrong. But he was like, you know, like, I think her honesty almost rubbed him the wrong way. I think he's used to maybe kind of being in celebrity world in a similar way to Cat Williams, where he was very honest and like not hiding. And I think Shannon is like, oh, you can't say that. Come on now, Cat. Come on now.
Did he be wanting the body? And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did. I did. See,
I kind of got the same vibe from Amanda. I think she was so honest. I think some of the things she said, you know, even talking about the autism thing, even though she doesn't have a diagnosis, I think a lot of people would just be like, oh, you know, just wouldn't admit it or wouldn't want to talk about it or put it out in the public. And I think generally as a public, we're so used to being fake and not real, that it's difficult to see someone being real.
I mean, I had a little real, and he says that Issa is like most of her set is with women, camera people, et cetera, and that she's very empowering to women.
Oh, I disagree. She wasn't empowering to me. She didn't feel like she didn't feel like I deserved to be protected.
Another thing as well that I was thinking about is the fact that she gave an example of when she lost her job because she was replying back to emails saying yes, no, yes, no. And I know for me, if I'm texting or emailing someone and they're sending me back yes or no answers, I'm gonna think they're rude. I'm sorry, I will. I'm not even apologetic because that's not the way we talk in society. That's not the way we communicate in society. You tend to be like, hey, how are you? Yes, that job is good for me, whatever, you know, something like that. But if someone's texting you yes or no, yeah, I'm gonna think that's rude. And I think that's what doesn't mean because Shannon Sharp's questions were a bit leading or his questioning was wrong, it doesn't also mean that she's 100% right, because I can see how someone could read that as if you don't want to do this job. Obviously now understanding if she does have, you know, autism, then you're going to assess that situation differently. But if you don't know that, you're going to think she's rude. And yeah, I feel like people are so quick to want to kind of announce a winner, like, oh, he won or she won. I don't really think kind of either of them won anything or either of them were completely 100% right or wrong. I think we're just seeing kind of like two very different type of people, different generations, different ideologies, coming together trying to have a conversation. And I think it's really unfair for people to kind of say he's not smart enough or he's not intelligent enough to kind of hold a conversation. I don't know, I feel like I feel like if you are someone who is more intelligent or you are someone who is more educated, I feel like it's the job of the person who's more intelligent or more educated to reach the person who's not. You know, just because you have, you know, gone to school for several years, it doesn't mean you should lose the ability to talk to someone who is less educated. I don't know Shannon Sharp's education. All I know, he was an American football player. but obviously in the conversation you can tell that they're coming from two very different points of views. And I appreciate the fact that she says, when I'm talking about race, I'm talking about it from someone who studied it. Like, she's literally, I think she said she's got a master's in African American studies, so she's coming from a very different place. And I feel like he was able to receive that. He was like, okay, I understand. He was kind of giving more anecdotal evidence, so I don't know, I think it was still a good conversation, and it kind of highlighted why she may feel the way she does. One of the main things I did agree with Amanda about was when she was sharing her experience about being bullied. I did think, why does he care so much to try and explain or to try and justify the children's kind of meaning, or like, oh, they're just kids? Because I think it's really important to think, well, if they were just kids, I was also just a kid. And I really like the fact that she kind of drove the idea home. Well, how did I experience it? It doesn't matter where they were coming from I experienced it as racism, and it's one child against 5, 10, 15, 30 children. And as someone as someone who actually went to kind of, you know, like white school, I think at one point I was one of two of the only like black girls in my year. Yeah, you feel that, you feel that coming at you. And I think you can't kind of devalue someone's experience, and I felt like he was devaluing her experience in that moment.
Can be kids and not function as an adult, and things can be wrong. And sometimes when kids say things, they're repeating what they heard their parents say. They don't know it's wrong.
So what about the children who are receiving it that know it's wrong? Does that not matter?
Yes.
So if I'm 10 and I'm receiving that treatment and I know it's wrong, does it make my experience of it less?
It doesn't make it any less valid. No.
So that's what we're here to talk about. My experience.
Yes.
So my experience is that I experienced that and it was difficult. So that's the valid part of this. I'm not here to protect those people because it's irrelevant.
So
in the interview, but especially in that moment, I did think, why does he care so much to highlight the fact that they were children? I think it's really important when people are sharing their stories to not try to be like, well, but, because it doesn't matter. This is my experience. This is how I felt. I felt it like it was racism. And yeah, that's one of the main things that I really liked, and I think that's why people are reacting to it so much, because I think often people feel like people are always looking for a reason to say, well, you shouldn't feel like that, well, you know, and it's like, well, that's how I felt. I felt how I felt. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think. I wanted to just make a really quick video because obviously there's so much we can talk about. And I think that for some people, this interview helped them like her more. For some people, this interview kind of made them like her less. All I'm saying is I see both sides. I don't think it's one person wins, one person loses, one person's right, one person's wrong. I think I can see where both of them were coming from and where both of them may have come across not very well. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.